Francie, how's your belly feeling?
I can ask you now.
Are you ready to eat ice cream?
Yes.
You think your belly can handle ice cream?
Uh-huh.
Are you sure?
Yes.
He's ready for ice cream. My name is Vander Fugger, and this is Finding Frequency. This is a momentous occasion. The fact that my son a couple of minutes ago pointed to his belly and said he's ready to have some ice cream, and he looked fairly excited about the prospect, means that he's kind of getting on the other side of this painful belly bug. And trust me, it's been painful. He hasn't been very happy, and it pained me and Mom to see him go through it. There's not much we could do except for give him horrible medicines, dry bread, and all the things that help for belly bugs. So we are moving towards getting through this little dip, and just in time for the weekend, and hopefully we'll be able to let him get out there and spend a bit of time with friends and interact a little bit, especially seeing that a lot of the kindergartens and schools are starting up and people are sending their kids back, and it kind of feels like we are in the minority keeping Francie back. But we'll be able to reassess that in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure, depending on what happens. I'm still not entirely convinced that there is enough knowledge or precautions being made or enough understanding for what is going to happen next. So having that little bit of space to check things out. In Afrikaans we say, die kat uit die boom kyk, to look at the cat in the tree. I don't know if that makes any sense. Anyway, so that is the status quo of the belly bug situation. Father-in-law is still stable, doing what he needs to do. And as I mentioned before, Martha's not sent the next follow-up yet, but I feel a bit more of a lightness around the situation, even though in the last day or so, there's been a little bit of a step back in the stableness of the situation. We'll just have to see. I think this is going to take far longer than we actually ready or expecting it's going to take. And then also I need to share this strange situation. I can only, as much as I praise my wife for this crazy thing she's doing, there's also this kind of craziness in my in-laws, my family, because the strange thing, and this is kind of in our neighborhood, and I have to share this, is that so my father-in-law has his house, and then behind his house is his father's house. They refer to him as granddad's house or granddad's house. Now that was the original house. So this is like a little old communist style square box. And apparently I've been told that this house has been built out of bricks that granddad went to go fetch after the war. So this is in a way built out of bricks from a destroyed Warsaw, which in itself is also a cool story to tell, right? But nothing special about this little square block sitting behind my in-laws' house. Now, to be sure, this was the original house, this little square communist-looking little block. And what happened subsequently is that my father-in-law then started living in the backyard in a little smaller house. And then subsequently, as I understand it, started building out his house, and then ultimately converting his little square communist block into a very normal 2-story, 3-story if you take into account that there's also a basement house, which looks very modern. Now, unfortunately, the old house at the back has been left to its own devices for the last 2-3 years since this great-grandfather or grandfather passed on. Now, the plan is that they're going to demolish this house and then build a new house or little block of apartments on this property as an investment, but that's a big blah blah story. This is not the interesting part of the story yet. I feel a little bit sad that they're destroying this little house because there's a quaintness around it, but there's also kind of a weirdness because it's damp and it's not been looked after, so there's no real, I don't know, I don't think you can really restore it into something cool. There's just something about some of these communist looking buildings that it's not like you can go and paint it with white paint and make it look rustic and have a bunch of hipsters move in. It's just not that kind of building. But now that said, they're going to demolish it, and that is what it is. Now here is the interesting part of the story. Apparently, the grandfather has been a little bit quirky, a little bit weird. And this is something that I assume has been like a holdover from communist times. And apparently, this grandfather has built his businesses and his riches over time. And people didn't like to use banks that much. So from time to time, they will go and use the regional bank. And the regional bank is a hole in the ground where you then bury your belongings, your valuables, and then later on go back to dig it up again when needed, because your enemies and especially the government will not necessarily go look in your backyard in a hole under the ground to find your gems and gold. Now, rumor has it, and I don't know where this rumor started in my family, is that apparently Granddad has hidden gold in his house. Now, I remember even before I moved to Poland, I started cleaning up this house, and mainly to go in there and find treasure, and making sure that when the demolition crew comes, that they don't score this treasure. And apparently they found some money, and that was shared amongst the family or whatever. But since then, this rumor of treasure persists. And I would argue, even my family would disagree with me, is that this rumor of treasure has really delayed any progress on the new building, because no one really knew what to do. And then add in a pandemic, man. Now, I've not gotten too involved in the situation. Like, for me, it's a bit of a crazy thing. I have interest in a sense from a storytelling perspective, but to go and try and find treasure, it's not my treasure. I don't actually think there's treasure. I'm perhaps a little bit too much of a realist. But recently what they did, and this is not something that my family would do, is that they went out, they got a guy, I don't know if they hired him or whatever, with a metal detector. He went into the basement of this little block house and started searching around for treasure. Apparently he found 2 beeps somewhere under there. My wife then went out to go and hire a jackhammer. And once again, I have not been involved in any of this. I don't want to be. But she hired a jackhammer, and then last night, around 10 o'clock, she and her brother decided to go out there and go look for treasure. Now, the fact that I'm still recording this here and talking to my son about getting ice cream should indicate to you that treasure did not befall us. We are not out celebrating somewhere. And unfortunately, it seems that there is not going to be any treasure anytime soon. But perhaps there will be some demolition happening at some stage, and then they can start building this new building. But it's quite interesting to sit around and listen to stories about this old grandfather hiding his treasures and then trying to go out and find it, because I think in the back of the mind there is this kind of thing that if we find this treasure, how our lives will change. Anyway, I rambled on for way too long about a treasure, but that is something interesting. And perhaps when the demolition starts, who knows what they will dig up. I'm just a little bit afraid that they will more than likely dig up World War II ordnance. Now that is something that they do find here, even on my side of the river from time to time. Just recently, they actually had to stop the work they were doing because they're extending the metro lines in our area. They had to stop because they found a big ass bomb, and they had to bring in the military and all kinds of guys to actually go and remove this World War II ordnance and then take it somewhere to go and really blow it up again. But it's kind of quirky yet interesting to live in a world where these kind of things can happen. So be careful out there. Because you never know. You might be walking over Granddad's treasure, but it might be more than likely an old World War II bomb. Who knows? Anyway, it keeps things interesting, right? I'm going to leave it there and grab my son and go out and find ice cream. But don't tell my wife. Thanks for listening.